Okay, good morning. Today's CAD training topics for February 2024 are going to be sites and parcels. Real quick, before we get into the sites and parcels, feel free to put any questions in the chat, or you can unmute and ask. If you put something in the chat and I seem to ignore it, it's because I'm trying to look at too many things at once, so just interrupt me. You can unmute and interrupt whenever. So I emailed out this morning a link to the training files. There's a couple PDFs of these slides if you want them. There's also two CAD files, one for a sites exercise and one for the parcels exercise. They are read only, so feel free to open them up, save them on your end drive, whatever you want to do if you want to follow along. Hopefully it's helpful. So to get started, I'm going to talk about sites. So what are sites? Sites are used by Civil 3D to group objects together, intelligent civil objects. So I like to think of them as folders. And you have to assign certain types of objects to a site. Otherwise, they can interact with one another and potentially cause issues, which we'll look at here in a little bit. So there are kind of two sets of objects that use sites. Primary objects, as Civil 3D calls them. These would be your parcels, your alignments, feature lines, grading objects. These have to be on sites, and they should all be on a different type of site. So our template has pre-configured sites for lots and for grading. I usually make one whenever I do alignments, and that's something that we could probably add to the template later. So those are your primary objects. Dependent object types. These are dependent on the primaries. So you have your profiles, your sections, corridors, and intersections. Profiles and sections are dependent on alignments. Corridors can be dependent on alignments or feature lines. Intersections could be alignments or feature lines as well. Okay, so how and when should you make a site? Anytime you create one of these primary objects, your parcels, alignments, feature lines, or grading objects, you should either make a site or select a site that is already existing in the drawing, so maybe in the template, or that you've already used. You might also need to make more than one site for an object type. For example, if you're doing interim grading or something like that, where you're going to have feature lines that are going to be making parts of a surface or a new surface that is going to be blended with another one. If you don't want those to interact with your final grading, you'd put them on your own site just for that, to keep everything separate. So we'll do a quick example of how to make one, where they are, that kind of thing, and then we'll keep rolling. Okay, so now hopefully you can see my CAD screen. This is the sites sample file that's on the S drive. But what I want to show you is where the sites are stored, how to make a new one, that kind of stuff. So over in your tool space, there's a sites dropdown. Within that are all the sites that already exist in the template, plus this one, which I created in this drawing for my alignments. If you ever need to make a new site, you can do it when you make an object. So I'll create a feature line, and it's going to prompt for what site I want to put it on. At that point, I can select one that is already existing, or I can hit the Create New button, name my site, and hit OK. Alternatively, if you just want to make a site but you don't need objects at that point, you can right-click on Sites, hit New, and the same dialog box comes up. So it's pretty simple. Okay, so moving forward. Why are sites important? So they're going to prevent your different object types from interacting. For example, feature lines and parcels. If they're on the same site, it could create additional parcels using feature lines like property lines, which obviously we don't want. It could also put spikes in your surface and mess the whole surface up. potentially. So those are the issues created by not using them. Now we're going to jump back into that sites drawing, and I'll just show you a couple quick examples of how you might know that something is messed up with your sites and how you can go ahead and fix it if you need to move things to different sites. Okay, so up here we have a really nasty looking surface that I just made off of some quick feature lines, and then I drew a parcel within it. These are on different sites right now, so I will show you how you know what site an object is on. So here's my properties dialog box. If you select an object that needs to be on a site, so here's a feature line, under the data section of your properties, you're going to see which site it's on. Same goes for your parcels. So you can select a segment, it'll show you the site. You can click on the label and it'll show you the same thing. So you can see in this one, the parcel is on the proposed lots site. The feature line is on the proposed grading site. Now we're going to pan over, and here you can see same basic layout. Surface looks a little bit different, and the parcel looks messed up. It's showing 2 lots instead of 1. So it's still showing the overall one that I drew the first time at 4.35 acres. But now it's also showing lot 2, and it doubled it up for some reason. Okay, so what do I do when that happens? Well, first I'm going to check my site. That's on proposed lots. That makes sense. But feature line is also on proposed lots. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select these feature lines because I recognize that there's something wrong, and I'm going to move the feature lines to a different site to hopefully fix my problem. So all you need to do is select the objects you want to move. You're going to say move to site, and you select the one you want to move it to. So I'm going to put it on proposed grading. Say OK. Now I'm going to rebuild this surface. And now the surface is moved. These two match each other because everything is on the right site. There's still an issue with the parcel, but what you should be able to do, delete one, it goes away, and you're left with the same lot that we had here. They're different numbers because they're existing within the same drawing, and they are on the same site, but they don't interact with each other because they're not touching. Doesn't matter. So that's kind of one way to fix that. Different example. This is that same 4.35 acre parcel with an alignment going through it. The alignment is on the PRCL site. The parcel, proposed lots. If I pan over here, you can see it subdivided the lot because I put the alignment on the wrong site. So you have a 2.4 acre site, which you can see when I select it, it made the lot, it selects the boundary and it's cutting it off at the alignment. So that's a good indicator to know, oh, okay, there must be a site problem. So what I'm going to do is just move this to my PRCL, and it automatically fixes your issue. Now, 1 lot, 4.35 acres, the way it's supposed to be, good to go. So that's a real quick overview of kind of how to look at your sites, how to check which sites objects are on, some things to look at if something seems off in your drawing or something changed without you knowing why. That could be why. So keep rolling forward here. Okay, that brings us to parcels. Parcels are essentially intelligent lots that exist within Civil 3D. You can label them with meets and bounds, just like you can polylines, lines, arcs, same thing. They also can automatically have their lot numbers and areas labeled, and that's a major benefit to them. And you can use set criteria like from an ordinance or at the direction of a client if they want certain sized lots, and it'll automatically create the parcels for you. So how are parcels a benefit to me? They allow you to quickly subdivide lots using a set criteria. So you'll see a table in a lot of ordinances that give you the criteria you need to use when you create your lots. It's really beneficial in the conceptual stage to come up with something quickly. To come up with more of a final product, you do need to do some more manual manipulation, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But generally, they're fairly simple to modify. The labeling goes pretty quick. You can renumber lots if you need to. You can label them different ways, like open space lots or stormwater lots for your basins. And probably the best part is that you don't need to manually update area labels for every single lot whenever you slide one line or something like that, because it'll continuously update as you make changes, which is really a nice feature. So how do parcels work? We're going to jump into the parcels drawing file, and we're going to create a couple parcels. We're going to modify a few, and we're also going to do some labeling, go over some of that, and we'll look at some of the styles that are in the template now for labeling the way we want them to look on our plans. So real quick before we jump into the CAD file, here's an example of one of the tables that you might see in an ordinance. This is from Ferguson Township's R1 zoning district, and the table gives you the lot area that you need to have as a minimum, your lot widths, and your setbacks. That's kind of your most important information. So in our example, we're going to do the number 2 type lot with the 10,000 square foot minimum, the 80-foot lot width at the building setback line, and the setbacks listed there in the chart. So we'll jump into CAD. So you should be able to see my CAD screen here, and I put the table down in the corner so you guys can reference where I'm getting the numbers that I'm going to type in. But whenever you start, I have just an existing road running along here, and I just drew a polyline for my center line. I offset it, threw a cul-de-sac bulb on it, and then I offset that back and took the arc out from the outside. It's a little bit unrealistic. We probably wouldn't have all of these short segments. There'd maybe be 3 or 4 segments. They'd be a little bit longer, but for the sake of the exercise, this is what we're going to go with. I also put some of my setbacks in. So we have 25-foot front, 30-foot rear, and these corner lots need to have a front on 2 sides, so I put 25s here off of the existing street. First step whenever we go to create parcels is to create a closed polyline that encloses it so that we can create an overall parcel. So I'm going to go ahead and isolate my existing and proposed property. I'm going to do a B poly, which is going to create my closed polyline within it. Select where I want it to make it, and it made a closed polyline within. Next, we're going to go up to the parcel dropdown and create a parcel from objects. Here we can select the parcel. I'm going to put it on a site since we know that's important. So proposed lots, parcel style, it's going to be proposed. I'm going to add an area label. We're going to go with lot number and area, which is going to add the acreage and square footage. And I'm going to erase my closed polyline because I have the polylines that I started with underneath. So it created a parcel. It is the entire area that I B-polyed, about 5.74 acres. So there's your starting point. The next step I would do is create the corner lots manually, because you have to account for having 2 front setbacks. So I already went in and put dummy lines in here, kind of construction lines, and I just put them on the 0 layer for now. But we're going to use these to set our corner lots. And essentially all I did was took the minimum lot width and I added the extra 15 feet to go from the front setback to the side setback distance. So I'm going to select these 2 lines. I'm going to create parcels from objects again. I'm going to put them on my proposed lot site. Same style that I used before. I'm going to use the same label style, and I'm going to erase my polylines and hit OK. Now we have 2 corner lots that are parcels. We still have the balance as lot 1. You can see the area got smaller. And now we'll go ahead and we'll continue to subdivide this bigger one. So we are going to use the automatic parcel creation tools. So we're going to go to the parcel drop down, click on parcel creation tools, and it brings up this dialog. Here's where your table from the ordinance comes in handy. So Civil 3D puts in these default values. These values stay the same every time you open this dialog. So it gets a little bit cumbersome if you have to create a lot of lots, because every time you open this, you have to type the information in. But depending on what you're doing, you really only need to fill in 4 to 5 lines worth of this. And how well you set it up beforehand can help you save time. So I'm going to create that type 2 style lot, which is the 10,000 square foot minimum. The minimum frontage, we're going to do it at the building setback line, so it's going to be 80 feet. Minimum frontage at offset, that means we want to measure offset from the right-of-way, which is going to be the setback. So we're going to use a 25-foot offset. I'm going to make this an 80-foot width for what we're doing, and we don't need to worry about any of this other stuff. Our lots are already going to be deeper than 50 feet. They're not going to be anywhere near 500 feet, so we're good on that. The next important section is this automatic layout mode. Depending on what you're doing, you may want to turn this on or leave it off to give yourself a little more control. For the first example, I'm going to leave it on, and it gives you this drop down for what to do with extra space. So if it goes through, offsets 80 feet the entire way around, and you still have 10 feet left over, it can put what's left in the last parcel, it can make a small parcel from what's left, or it can redistribute it through all of the lots. So I'm going to have it do that. So we have all of our settings ready. The next step is to click this button here for slide line create. So I click it, I assign my site, my parcel style, and my label style, which I'm using the same ones as before, and hit OK. Next, I need to click the lot that I'm subdividing. I need to pick the starting point on the frontage, and you can see that it highlights the frontage as I mouse my way around. So now I'll click the end point. It's going to tell me what direction it's going to run the lots in. And I just hit enter. It gives me a little preview. And there's all your lots. Now what you notice is you end up with some really ugly lots, potentially, depending on what your geometry is. So what I prefer to do is not use the automatic mode. So I'm just going to hit undo real quick. Brings us back to our large lot. And I'm going to try this again, but I'm going to adjust what I do a little bit. So I go back into the layout tools. I'm going to key my frontage and area back in. I'm going to do it real quick. This time I'm going to turn off automatic mode, and I'm going to hit my slide line create button again, and OK. Select my lot to be subdivided, my frontage points. This time what I'm going to do is have it create lots, but I'm only going to go up to where the cul-de-sac begins because I want a little bit more manual control over that. So I'm just going to pick a point somewhere in the cul-de-sac for it to end. And when I right click, now it's only going to show me a preview for one lot. I'm going to say, yup, I like that. Right click again, it'll keep creating. So I'm going to have it keep going most of the way around here. And we will stop at that. I'm going to do the same thing, go in the other direction. We're just going to create our lots, just like that. Okay. So now I have pretty nice, mostly uniform lots out to the end of the cul-de-sac, and I have my leftover right here. Now I think what I'm going to do is try to create my cul-de-sac lots separately. So I'm going to go back into the dialog, going to key it in for the third time. This is where it can get a little repetitive, like I said at the beginning. If you're ever working on a project where you have a lot of lots to create, like a preliminary subdivision plan, there is a way to go into the settings and adjust your defaults, which we can help you do that if you ever need to. For the most part, probably not worth going in and doing it for all the longer it takes to type it. So we'll just press on like this. So I am going to have it automatically create these lots now. So I'm going to go ahead, click my lot to subdivide, and roll my way along here. Here we created it, and it has fairly decent looking lots. Now, one thing we want to avoid when we are subdividing lots is having small line segments, small curve segments. So lot 18 and lot 21, I don't like this. To me, it's not necessary because these lots are already wider than they need to be. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to modify. So the way I would do this is create a construction line. So I'm going to just make a polyline. I'm going to snap to this corner, and then I'm going to snap perpendicular to the right-of-way line. Now, the nice thing with parcels, especially if you use the automatic creation, I can grab one of these lines, grab the grip, and I can slide it. It'll keep it radial to the right-of-way no matter where you put it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that on my endpoint of my construction line. It's going to update my area, puts it right on the corner where I have it. You can see it made this lot a little bit bigger now. They don't match anymore. It's an easy way to modify as you need. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. So construction line, grip edit, drop it right on. And we'll just delete the construction line. So now we got rid of those small segments. These are looking a little bit better. 18 and 21 are still a little bit goofy, but for the sake of the exercise, they're pretty good. They're definitely buildable lots. Next thing we're going to run through is how to renumber your lots. So sometimes when you subdivide it, you'll see that it puts them all out of order. So lot 1's over here, lot 2's up here, 3, and then it starts going in a weird order. So to renumber lots, and I guess firstly, really anything you do with parcels, you want to be in world for your UCS. So right here, I am already in world. Some of these features, it will not let you do anything unless you're in world, and it won't tell you why it's not working. It just won't work. It's kind of a weird Civil 3D thing. So that's just something to check if you try to use one of these commands and nothing happens. So I'm in world. I want to renumber my lots. We're going to start with lot 1 over here and just go around the bend. So I need to select the lot I want to start with. The ribbon changes to parcel specific tools. and I'm going to go to renumber and rename. Okay, my site, that's the site the lots are on. I'm going to start with lot 1, hit OK. And now I just need to click inside of where I want lot 1 to be and draw a polyline through the lots in the order that I want them to be numbered. I accept that. It renumbers the lots the whole way around. And we're good to go with our 21 lots that would meet the chart in the ordinance. So we'll jump back into the presentation slides. Okay. So a couple kind of tips for parcels. Manually drawing the corner lots we talked about. That's really important, especially if it is a corner where maybe you're going to have lots that are going around this way too. You don't want to have it automatically try to create lots that go around a corner. It doesn't work, right? You're much better off to stay on straight runs and do your corners manually. What else do we have here? Use the ordinance information as your input. It's a really easy way to quickly create your lots, and you have a set criteria with how you came up with your numbers. Breaking up larger areas into smaller chunks. That's why I already had the area that I wanted my base parcel to be drawn out. Manually manipulate or grip edit parcel lines in your cul-de-sacs. We did that. Using construction lines is really helpful with that. And lay out lots in such ways to minimize small line and curve segments. Yep, makes sense. And it's one of those things too, if you don't pay attention to that, you'll definitely get markups from survey that say, why'd you put a 2-foot line segment in this lot? Slide it over. We don't need that. Okay, so how do I modify a parcel? What about when there are curves? One of the complaints that I always hear people have when they're dealing with parcels is they're a pain to modify. Someone said I need to move this lot line over a few feet. I try to do it and it messes everything up. What do? Especially near a cul-de-sac when I have curves. So there are special commands you can use to take care of that. We're going to jump in to the parcels file again, and we can run through some of that. I see a question here from John Hauser. Can you hide the area in bulk categories? I'm not sure. Do you mean in? Not 100% sure what you mean, John. You can unmute if you want to clarify. It was covering the cul-de-sac. Oh, you mean the table on the screen. Okay, yep, my bad. I missed that. Okay, so we'll jump back. So let's see. We're going to go over the edit curve command. We already talked about grip editing. You can always delete segments and put them back in, and you can use polylines to create segments from. You can also use the construction lines that we talked about to create parcels from objects. It's really helpful. So now let's jump back into the CAD file. I took the table off this time so you can see the whole CAD interface. Hopefully that helps so we don't have the issue of me covering something with it without realizing it. So for this part of the exercise, what I want to do is pretend we submitted this and we got a comment that said, we don't like this 15-foot radius where you transitioned into the cul-de-sac bulb. We want that to be a 20-foot radius. So we're going to grip edit. We're going to revise the radiuses and go from there. So I'm going to throw a dimension on the bulb too so we know what size that is. So it's a 58-foot radius with a 15-foot transition at either side into the right-of-way. So to start, the way I would do it, I would create a circle using the tangent radius method. So I'm going to pick my first tangent, my second tangent, and they told us they want 20 foot. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it on both sides. Tangent, tangent, 20 foot radius. Now I'm going to just go ahead and trim to make arcs. So trim those off. And you can see my 20 foot segments are in here now. Okay. Next up, I'm going to select the right-of-way segment of my parcel. So you see I selected it. It's a parcel segment. You can see my grips. I'm going to grab that one. I'm going to snap it to the end point of my arc. Do it again. Snap it. Okay, and now you can see this is the 20 foot radius arc. This is my parcel segment. It messed up the radius of the bulb, and it messed up the radius here. I'm going to ignore it for a minute, and I'm going to grip edit the other side real quick. So we're going to throw it on the endpoints. There. And now you can see it really messed it up. So, okay, how do we go through and fix it? We're going to select the parcel so that it brings up the parcel contextual ribbon. We're going to edit geometry. And now you see the tools that look just like feature line tools. The one we're going to use is called Edit Curve. So I'm going to click on that. It wants me to select the curve to edit. So I'm going to pick on that curve. And I'm going to make it a 20 foot radius. So I type 20, hit apply. You saw it move. It's right on top of the construction line now, which is where we want it. We'll do the other side real quick. 20, apply, and now we'll do the bulb. 58, and okay. And there we go. So now you can see, I'll delete my construction line. Here's the new parcel. This is just the old polyline that I had in there before. I would probably grip edit it to put it on top of the parcel so that later when I have to do my labeling, I can label the right-of-way segments. We'll just do that real fast. And that's all good there. Okay, so that's how we would modify. We'll go over some labeling real fast. So to label parcel segments, I would go to Annotate, Add Labels. You get your Add Labels dialog box. Under Feature, we're going to select Parcel. And here you can select Line and Curve label styles. They're the same ones you get whenever you label polylines or arcs. So I'm going to do a bearing and distance proposed for a line, and I'll do a table tag for the curve. You click Add, and you can just click the segments you want it to label. Throws the labels on. You can flip the labels by selecting them, right click, flip if you want them on the other side. You can change the style by selecting it, and in your properties, changing it to, say, distance only, whatever you need it to be labeled properly. What's nice with the parcels is these labels are going to update themselves. So if I need to move this line over a couple feet, I can grip edit it, and I'm going to move it, say, 5 feet. You can see it updated the label along the frontage, updated the area, updated the label in the back, all on its own. It's a really nice feature. There are some quirks with it, but once you practice with it a little bit, it is really useful. It can save you a lot of time. So we'll jump. Yeah.
So if you want the overall right-of-way width, you would just do a regular polyline label, right?
Yep. So what I would do, since the parcels are on top, I would go through and label all these segments just with a distance. And I've, flip them where they need to be. So we'll just do one. Flip the label, okay. And then I would grab my polyline. So right now I have the polyline selected. I'd bring it to the front and then select my line label, single segment, bearing and distance, proposed add, and it labels the overall length. So, yep, and I would do the same thing along the back. Yeah, to get your overall labels. Most of your parcel labels will end up flipped to the inside because it'll only do the segments, it won't do the overalls. So does that answer your question, Cody?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, cool. Yep. All right, so we'll jump back in to presentation. Okay, and that is actually all I had put together for today. If anybody has questions, feel free to unmute, you can ask. If not, that's okay too. And kind of to close out as we're waiting if anybody has any questions, feel free to let John or I know what you're thinking about the new training format. We're kind of trying to make it a little bit more interactive so that if we're going over a topic that you need more practice with, you can follow through on your own in CAD. Or if it's something you've done before, you feel pretty good about it, you can just kind of listen to it in the background, whatever works the best for you. And also being able to record it for later will hopefully be nice. We're going to have a playlist put together on the YouTube channel so that each month we can add the video. Anybody can go back at any time when we bring new people on. It's some onboarding training. We're going to see how it works. If you have any ideas, please let us know because we want it to be as good as it can be. But if there aren't any questions, oh, here's one. From Joel, can you add the setbacks to the lots automatically? There is not a way to add them that I know of. One thing you can do, like for your side setbacks, you can offset the parcel lines just like polylines. So I'm going to put my 10-foot sides on. You can do it this way. It does put them on the layer you have active. So right now I have 0 active. So I would do it with your proposed setback lines. Unfortunately, you still have to trim them just like polylines. It'd be nice if there was a way to do it automatically because I know no one likes offsetting and trimming all those lines, but hopefully in the future. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, seeing none, I think we'll call it at that for the day, and we'll do this again next month. Hopefully we'll continue to improve the process and make this as good as it can be. So thanks everybody.